Alright, so we just talked a lot about movies that came out last year. But it's time to stop looking in the past. Let's talk about a movie that came out this weekend. I saw Love Hurts. Yesterday, in fact. And I didn't really like it. I thought it was not very good. And right from the jump, I'll say Ke Huy Quan, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, he is not the problem with this movie. I probably saw it mostly because he was in it. The trailer looks okay. It looks like a John Wick-esque action movie. Ke Huy Quan is begrudgingly called back into his old life, and he's got to kick ass and take names. That was enough for me. I like him. I like John Wick, and some of the wannabe John Wicks have been pretty good. The Beekeeper last year. Silly. Not as good as John Wick, but I liked it. I had fun. It was an enjoyable time at the theater. This wasn't even on Beekeeper levels. This was, of the wannabe John Wicks, it flopped in pretty much every way. I think the worst part of this movie is the script. You know, it is an action movie. It's an over-the-top action movie. I'm not expecting the most riveting drama plot that I've ever seen before. It should just be effective enough to get us from action set piece to action set piece. We should get some motivations so that there's some additional emotional stakes in these fights. It's in the trailer. He's got to fight his brother. His brother is the one who's hiring all these goons. They're the ones facing off right here, right now in the trailer. So you expect there to be a history, obviously, and that should add some level of an emotional beat that adds and works with the action. Even in John Wick, you know, he's just a dude who loves his wife and his dog. And that's enough. You get enough characterization and enough motivation, and the plot works to move him forward and create these different action sequences. Here it's just a mess. It's quite convoluted. It is all tell and no show. They even do like inner monologues for multiple characters that just serve to tell you like what they're thinking and why they're gonna do the next thing that they do. It is like, I don't even know if it's writing 101. I think we're failing writing 101 at this point. On top of that, the action, it varies. Some of it's pretty good, but a lot of it is not all that stellar. It's not enough to justify how bad a lot of the rest of the movie is. There's the first kind of big fight scene that happens in Ke Huy Quan's house that we're seeing right here in the trailer. A lot of this, it didn't look right. And I think it's because it's as if you could see the wires on a lot of the actors. And not to take anything away from Ke Huy Quan's ability as a stunt performer. Obviously, that's kind of where that's what a lot of his career has been. I don't think he does a bad job of selling anything, but it feels like they're fighting on the moon in that scene in particular. Because he's up against Marshawn Lynch, and both of them are just kind of floating around and like throwing each other in a way that it feels like the gravity is set to like 50%. And obviously they edit out the wires, like you can't actually see them, but they're moving in such weird ways that it's as if you can see them, if that makes sense. To go back to something positive, Marshawn Lynch being in the movie, inspired choice, and spoiler, but in this moment coming up in the trailer right here, after he tackles this guy, Raven, feels beast mode when he does it. which is kind of sick. It's one of the 2 times I actually like cracked a smile and was enjoying myself in this movie. I'll get to the other one in a little bit, but you know, that's not good. It's a pretty short movie. It's, what do we got for a runtime here? 83 minutes. It's quick and easy as far as the runtime's concerned. But even then, it was like struggling to keep my attention. I did not really care about any of these characters in the slightest. The way they try to weave in the history and the backstory is very confusing, very convoluted. The editing is not good. It'll just jump between different characters, seemingly at random at some points. Like you'll just be with one set of characters and then all of a sudden you're cut over somewhere else and you're just like, where am I? Why are we conveying the story in this order? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It does lead to like confused motivations. There tries to be a little bit more of an emotional resonance with Ke Huy Quan and Sean Astin, which is, again, all tell, no show. They talk about how they're family, they're brothers, they spend holidays together. You get one scene where Sean Astin is his boss and he gives him this award for best real estate agent or whatever. And he's like, You've done so much for me. I love you like a brother. And that's really it. That's all you get to try to convey that. And like most other things here, it doesn't work. This actor, this character here, Raven, he's kind of cool. Just purely from his outfit being kind of sick. He carries knives and also like darts with feathers on them. Some of that stuff is cool. He's got a giant knife that he like pulls out of his boot. And this actor, who I'm not like super familiar with, I thought was pretty decent for what he was given. But this plotline is so strange. And I think I'm just going to spoil it. And moving forward, I think I'm just going to keep talking openly because I don't think this is really worth your time to watch, which is disappointing. Maybe if it comes to Netflix later and you're that bored, you can give it a shot, but yeah, I don't know that this is really worth your time, even given how short it is. So I'm going to give a few more spoilers. Again, it's going to be relatively minor stuff that doesn't really matter anyway, but that's your warning. His whole plotline, he's the first guy who like comes to kill Ke Huy Quan, and they fight in his office. That's what we're seeing here in the trailer. And then he passes out, and Ke Huy Quan's assistant or employee, on the right here, she finds him like passed out in his office. And this guy who's a killer for hire, I don't really know how else to describe him, an assassin, also is a poet. He's got a book of poetry that she starts reading. And she really likes his poetry. It really resonates with her. Because she's like borderline suicidal in the first 10 minutes of this movie. It is a weird character trait, saying that loosely, that they introduce for her pretty much immediately. She's like, I hate my job, I hate my life, I just don't want to do this anymore. That's like her whole character. And then she finds this dude passed out. He wakes up, they bond over his poetry, and they just like fall in love with each other. And even after that, he goes to do more assassin shit that she comes along with. He is like not holding back, almost kills her, may or may not kill 2 other characters, it's a little ambiguous. And then in the end, like, she's just like, hey, stop it. Stop it, I love you. And if that didn't make any sense by me explaining it, I promise you it doesn't make any more sense in the movie itself. The driving force of this movie is Ariana DeBose. she comes back because she was supposed to be killed by Ke Huy Quan in the past. It doesn't make a lot of sense because in the movie she just like works as a bartender in the same town that all these people live in. So I don't really understand how this wasn't like commonly known. Like this wasn't just easily available information that she wasn't killed. She's actually very much alive and working down the street as a bartender. That was never really made clear. I didn't really care about her motivations were drip fed to you in a way that was super not satisfactory and pretty generic. Her relationship with Ke Huy Quan, I didn't really care about or buy. And then the final climactic fight, Ke Huy Quan finally standing up to his brother, who turned him into this killer when he just really wanted to be a realtor, was pretty underwhelming. And it mostly just came down to a fist fight that had its moments. Again, the action has its moments. Sometimes it's bad enough that it pulls you out. They do some creative stuff with the camera, but there's other parts that aren't shot very well. It's a mixed bag when it comes to the action, but ultimately, again, it doesn't do enough on its own to justify how not great some of the rest of the stuff is. The final note that I'll end on is I guess sequentially the first time I smiled and actually like enjoyed myself. There's two moments that I ended up enjoying myself in, and they happened like back to back in like the same scene. And one was Marshawn Lynch yelling beast mode and then tackling a guy through a wall. I mean, easy. That's worth a star on Letterboxd on its own. The second, and I'm going to try to find a frame here if it shows it anywhere. This is going to be the biggest spoiler because I don't think it was in the trailer. But they have a lesser known actor in this film by the name of Drew Scott. They have one of the Property Brothers in this movie playing a competitor realtor to Ke Huy Quan. And you see his like for sale sign and some of his billboards early on. And immediately I was like, inspired choice. And his whole gimmick is that he's got like a black belt and he's gonna like fight for you in the realtor market. He actually shows up in person, not just on a billboard, near the end of the film, when one of the last fights happens. In the same fight, in the same house where Marshawn Lynch is shooting him and tackling him through the wall. So right here, actually, where he's shooting Ke Huy Quan behind that couch, Drew Scott comes in because he's selling the house next door, and he is a black belt. And he's like, "Oh, I thought you needed help." So he comes in, he tries to fight Marshawn Lynch and the other guy that he's with, and they both end up behind this couch. And he's like, "All right, we got this. You go low, I'll go high." He jumps up from behind the couch, gets shot in the head. Cinema. So yeah, 2 stars out of 5. 1 star for Marshawn Lynch yelling beast mode and then tackling a guy. 1 star for shooting a property brother in the head. But outside of that, yeah, this was pretty boring. It felt longer than a lot of other films that have a longer runtime. It was not that great. Definitely would recommend watching any of the John Wick movies. Watch Beekeeper. I logged it. I did not give it a like on Letterboxd. Here's my current standings for the year. I guess I didn't hate it as much as Flight Risk, so take that for what it's worth. It's not the worst film I've seen this year so far, but I can't imagine it's going to be very high on my list at the end of the year.